Chapter 1. The first time I saw him was in 2004. I was 19, driving west on I-80, heading toward Iowa City after a fight with my dad. It was late, around 1:30 in the morning, and the fog had just started rolling in, low and thick like a wool blanket thrown over the highway. There was no traffic. No lights. Just silence, and my headlights cutting through the dark. And then, up ahead, a man walking down the center median. Not hitchhiking. Not staggering. Just walking. Calm. Straight ahead. Like he didn't even notice the cars flying by in either direction. Except there were no other cars. Just me. I remember slowing down as I passed. Something about how steady his stride was. He wasn't looking at me. Just forward. Black hoodie. Cargo pants. Pale face. Medium build. Looked like any guy you'd see in a gas station at 2 a.m. I drove a few more miles before it clicked how far we were from the nearest exit. So I pulled over and called the non-emergency line. Reported a pedestrian walking the median near mile marker 249. Said it could be a drunk or someone lost. They thanked me. Said they'd send someone out. I didn't think about it again for years. Until 2011. I was watching a YouTube video, 10 creepiest highway surveillance captures. One clip showed a man walking the median of I-80 at night, same area, same clothes, same gait, and the uploader pointed out that no officer ever found him. People in the comments said it was a ghost. Urban legend stuff. But one user said something that made my blood freeze. He only shows up before someone crashes. I started digging. Old highway logs, regional news blurbs, traffic fatality records. And they lined up. Multiple near-identical sightings over 20 years, always between 1 o'clock and 3 a.m., always on a highway median, always followed within hours by a fatal single-vehicle accident within a 5-mile radius. Usually young drivers. Usually no alcohol or drugs in the report. No skid marks. No mechanical failure. Just, off the road and into the trees. Every time. I contacted one of the families. Didn't tell them everything, just asked if their daughter had mentioned anything unusual the night she died. The mother, quiet for a long time, finally said. She called me around 1:45. Said something weird. That she passed a guy walking down the middle of the highway. Said it gave her a bad feeling. And then the call dropped. Another guy I reached out to said he'd seen the same figure near Omaha, 2 years earlier. He nearly crashed himself. Swerved to avoid what he thought was a person in the road, then looked in the mirror and saw nothing behind him. No man. No body. The median was empty. He said the highway patrol told him there'd been no one reported on foot in that area in weeks. This isn't a ghost story. I don't think it's paranormal. I think it's a pattern. Something behavioral. Somebody who knows the roads. Someone who walks the median not because they're lost, but because they want to be seen. And you don't survive if you stop. 2 months ago, I saw him again. Near Gary, Indiana. 2:12 a.m. Same posture. Same black hoodie. Same dead straight gaze. I didn't stop. Didn't slow. Didn't call it in. And that morning, I read a report about a woman who died outside Joliet. Solo accident. No drugs. No alcohol. No answers. I've seen too many forums brushing it off. People saying, it's fake, or photoshopped, or it's just coincidence. But check the logs. Look up the time stamps. Every single incident lines up. They don't even run it on the news anymore. Cops get the call. Patrol checks the area. No sign. Then someone dies. If you're ever driving late, especially between midnight and 3 and you see a man walking calmly down the median, not looking at you. Do not stop. Do not call out. And for the love of God, do not pull over to help. Because if you notice him, he's already noticed you. Chapter 2. There's a man in the background of all my old family videos. It started when I digitized the tapes. My mom passed last December, and when I was cleaning out her house, I found a box of old Hi-8 video cassettes. Labeled in her handwriting, birthdays, Christmases, Camp Trip 97. Stuff I hadn't thought about in years. I bought a converter, sat down with a beer, and started going through them. Mostly it was boring, my dad telling jokes, my sister crying over cake, the camcorder swinging wildly every time someone handed it off. But one video made me stop. It was my 7th birthday. Backyard cookout. My friends running around with water balloons. Dad flipping burgers. Mom waving at the camera. And there, near the shed, was a man. Just standing. Off to the side. Half in shadow. Wearing jeans and a jacket too heavy for summer. Not moving. Not talking. Just watching. I assumed it was a neighbor. Or someone's uncle. Until I found him again. Same guy. Different video. Halloween, 1995. Trick-or-treating. I'm dressed as Batman. Mom's filming. She pans right to follow me. And there he is. Same jacket. Same face. Same distance. Leaning against a tree. Again, just watching. I paused the footage. Took a screenshot. Compared the clips. Same guy. Then I went down the rabbit hole. Christmas 94. He's in the window behind the tree. 4th of July 96. Standing across the street. First day of school footage. Behind our car. He's in 12 tapes. 12 moments across 8 years. Always in the background. Always watching. Always the same age. I asked my sister. She didn't remember him. My aunt didn't either. I even called Mrs. Kowalski, our old neighbor. When I described him, she said, I always thought that was your uncle. I don't have an uncle. I ran the footage through facial recognition software. No match. Not even a low confidence result. It flagged him as blank metadata. Like his face didn't register as human. Still, maybe it was a coincidence. Until July 5, 1999. My 13th birthday. Mom films me doing a cannonball off the new deck. As I run, she pans too far left. And there he is. Leaning on the railing. 10 feet away. On the deck. No one reacts. He's not blurry. Not hiding. He's right there. I showed the clip to my fiancée. She screamed. The man is looking straight at the camera. And he's smiling. I started dreaming about him. At the foot of my bed. In my kitchen. Looking out my window, from inside. 3 weeks ago, I went back to that house. In my childhood bedroom, carved into the baseboard. I was always here. I locked the tapes away. I don't watch them anymore. But I wonder how many people will one day find someone in their background. And realize they were never really alone. Chapter 3, They found my photos in a stranger's house. It started with a phone call from a number I didn't recognize. I almost didn't pick up. No one calls anymore. But it was local, same area code. I figured it might be a wrong number or something from work. The woman on the other end was quiet for a second. Then she said my name. Full name. First, middle, and last. I said yes. Asked who she was. She said, "My name's Angela. I think you should come down to the property." There's something here that belongs to you. It was an old farmhouse a few miles outside of town. Overgrown lawn. Peeling paint. It looked like no one had lived there in decades. Angela met me out front. Mid-50s, gray ponytail, flannel. She looked like someone who smoked hand-rolled cigarettes and didn't care what anyone thought. She said she was hired by the bank to clean the place up before demolition. The previous owner, an older man named Daniel Everett, died in the fall. No family. No will. And no one had been inside for years. She said, "We were going through the second-floor bedroom. Found a bunch of boxes. Figured they were his until we opened one and saw a school ID from 2007 with your face on it. That got my attention. She led me upstairs. The smell hit me first. Dust, mold, something metallic under it all. There were 4 boxes on the floor. Each one labeled with a year, written in black Sharpie, 2007, 2008, 2009, 2010. She handed me gloves and opened the first one. Inside were photographs. Hundreds of them. All of me. Some were ones I remembered, high school yearbook photos, my Facebook profile pic from sophomore year, a class trip to Washington, D.C. But others I'd never seen before. Me walking to class, holding a cup of coffee. Me sitting on a bench by the library. Me asleep on a couch in my college dorm. None of them were posed. None of them were taken by me. And they weren't digital prints. These were film photographs. Some were labeled on the back with dates and times. One just said, March 13th, 3:17 a.m., breathing changes here. I felt sick. I asked Angela if anyone else had seen the boxes. She shook her head. She said there were more. She opened a second box. Inside were pieces of trash, things I recognized. An old bus pass. A receipt from a grocery store I used to go to. A crumpled up envelope with my handwriting on it. Everyday objects I'd thrown away years ago. One had a note attached. Still warm when collected. We opened the third box. That one was different. It was a photo album, handmade, old leather binding, yellowed pages. Tucked inside were photos of my apartment. Not recent ones. Not after I moved. Photos taken while I was still living there. Me brushing my teeth, seen through the crack in the bathroom door. Me eating cereal at the kitchen table. Me watching TV. All taken from low angles. Like through vents. Or floorboards. One showed me sleeping. The timestamp matched a night I remembered waking up with the feeling that someone had been in the room. I'd written it off as sleep paralysis. Angela had gone pale. She said the attic had more boxes. That she hadn't opened them yet. We went up. Wooden ladder. Dust falling from the ceiling. Smelled like rot and mothballs. The attic was dark, with only one window, painted over from the outside. There were 8 more boxes. Unlabeled. And a Polaroid camera on a stool, aimed at the entrance. It flashed when I stepped in. I opened the nearest box. Inside were clothes. Mine. Stuff I hadn't seen in over a decade. A hoodie I lost in high school. A pair of gym shorts with my initials sewn inside. Even an old Halloween costume from middle school, homemade zombie football player. Angela checked another box. Inside, audio cassettes. Dozens of them. Each labeled with things like Kitchen, February 12, 2011, soft crying. Basement, June 3, 2013, humming stops. Bedroom, November 7, 2010, he says my name. I didn't listen to any of them. I couldn't. Angela called the sheriff. He came out and took our statements. Collected everything as evidence. The house was locked up. The contents supposedly sent to a storage unit while they investigated. But nothing ever came of it. No public report. No follow-up. When I called the department a few weeks later, they told me the case was closed. Cause of death, natural. No signs of stalking. No criminal record for Daniel Everett. Nothing linking him to me. Just an old man with some strange collecting habits. That's what the officer said. Except 2 days ago, I got a letter in the mail. No return address. Inside was a single photo. A recent one. Me, sitting at the bus stop near my apartment. Headphones in. Looking down at my phone. It was taken from just a few feet away. On the back was a note. I always liked this angle. Chapter 4, The woman in apartment 6F never moves her eyes. When I moved into the building, they told me 6F had been occupied the longest. Since the 80s, the leasing manager said. She pays on time, never complains, keeps to herself. It was a 5-story walk-up near the edge of the city. Not a nice part of town, but not the worst either. My unit was 5B, 1 floor directly below her. Rent was cheap, and utilities were included, so I didn't ask questions. I only met her once. It was during my second week there. I was carrying a laundry basket up the stairs and she was coming down. Older woman. Gray, wiry hair pulled back into a bun. Turtleneck sweater, thick socks inside sandals. The kind of person you forget instantly, except I couldn't. Because she didn't blink. She kept eye contact the entire time she passed me. Didn't say a word. Didn't break her stare. Her pupils didn't move. It wasn't like she was just staring at me, she was staring through me. I chalked it up to age. Or maybe poor vision. But from that point on, I noticed things. Like how she never left the apartment unless the hallway was empty. I'd hear her door creak open, then slowly click shut again if anyone was nearby. And every time I walked by 6F, I felt watched. Not just looked at, watched. Studied. A few weeks later, I was walking home at night and looked up at the building. She was standing in her window, 5th one from the left. Same clothes. Hands at her sides. Eyes forward. But not looking at the street. Looking directly at my window. From her apartment, she'd have no view of mine. The angle doesn't line up. But she stared like she could see me anyway. I started closing the blinds more often. Then I started taping the blinds shut. Then I stopped using the living room altogether. But the feeling didn't go away. It escalated about a month in. One night, around 3 a.m., I was having trouble sleeping. I walked into the kitchen for some water and stopped cold. Because her face was in my window. Not her whole body, just her face. Motionless. Eyes wide. Staring through the glass. I live on the 5th floor. There's no ledge. No balcony. Nothing to stand on. By the time I turned on the light, she was gone. I filed a complaint with the landlord. He said, she's harmless. Probably confused. She's old. I told him what I saw. He shrugged. You want me to kick out a woman who's paid rent for 35 years without missing a day? For looking at you. So I bought a camera. Motion activated. Put it on the windowsill, facing out. The first night, nothing. Second night, at 3:12 a.m., it activated. The footage showed her face slowly rising into frame, like she was pulled up by something below. No harness. No ladder. Nothing in the reflection. Just her. And those unmoving eyes. I took it to the building manager. He watched the footage. Rewound it. Said, that's not her. I said, what do you mean? She hasn't lived here since 2007. I thought he was screwing with me. I asked about the rent, the noise, the woman I passed on the stairs. He opened a file cabinet and showed me the lease history. 6F was last rented to a woman named Margaret White. She was found dead in the apartment in 2007. Heart failure. No family. No will. The apartment had been vacant ever since. The door was sealed due to a leak in the ceiling. Too much effort to renovate for the price point, he said. I didn't believe him. So I went up. I picked the lock. I wish I hadn't. The apartment was coated in dust. Furniture covered in sheets. Cobwebs across every corner. The kitchen sink had dried blood in it. Not a lot, but just enough to look like someone had coughed hard. On the wall, above the TV, was a series of photographs. Every one of them was taken from outside. Of my window. I moved out that week. I didn't even pack everything. But 2 nights ago, I got a letter in the mail. No return address. Inside was a Polaroid. Taken from across the street. From the sidewalk. Looking up at my old apartment. My window. And in it, just barely visible. Her face. Same turtleneck. Same stare. Still watching. Chapter 5. I think the guy who sits behind me at work lives in the office. I never noticed him before. Not really. You know how it is in big office buildings, rows of identical desks, muted chatter, half-dead fluorescent lights that buzz more than the actual workers. But about 3 months ago, I got moved to a different floor. Budget cut. Consolidation. I was assigned a cubicle near the back, dead center of the department, no natural light, no traffic. And that's where I met Don. Gray dress shirts. Thinning hair. Wireless mouse with a foam wrist pad. The kind of guy you'd never look at twice. Except something felt off from day one. For one, he was always there. Always. First one in. Last one out. I'm not exaggerating, always. No matter how early I showed up, Don's monitor was already on, desktop background glowing in the dim morning light. If I stayed late for a project, Don was still typing. Calm. Focused. No headphones. No breaks. Just typing. After 2 weeks, I got curious. Mentioned it casually to my manager. Don, she said. He's reliable. Quiet. Keeps to himself. I think he's been with the company since the merger in 2011. Maybe earlier. That's it. That's all anyone seemed to know. No LinkedIn. No social media. No HR file I could access. So I started watching. And the more I watched, the weirder it got. Don never went to lunch. Never left for meetings. Never even stood up, except to shuffle slowly to the printer and back, always during the dead hours between 2 and 3 p.m. One night, I stayed until 9:30 finishing a quarterly report. Everyone else had gone home. Except Don. Still typing. I pretended to need something from the break room just to pass behind him. His screen. Completely blank. Just a white document with no title. Cursor blinking at the top. Then I noticed the food. Not on his desk, under it. One night, while he was away from his chair, I crouched down to pick up a dropped pen. There was a small cooler tucked beneath the drawers. Next to it, a package of protein bars, 2 empty water bottles, and a pair of old sneakers wrapped in a towel. No bag. No lunch box. Just supplies. I checked the trash can. It was full of wrappers. Same brand. Same 2 items. Repeated every day. The real turning point came last month. We had an office-wide deep clean, mandatory for all departments. Everyone was told to remove personal items and clear drawers so janitorial could sanitize. I came in early the next morning. Don's cubicle was untouched. Still had a stack of printouts, a cracked mug, and a sticky note on the monitor that read, "Please do not move. We'll reset later." That was weird. So I talked to Greg in facilities. He said no one saw Don leave the night before. No one came in after hours. But when they unlocked his desk drawers, they were full of clothes. Not folded. Not stored. Stuffed. Wrinkled shirts. Extra socks. A hairbrush with strands of gray. A stick of deodorant worn flat. Greg said it looked like someone had been living out of the desk. He reported it to HR. But HR never followed up. Don was still there the next day. No one brought it up. So last Friday, I stayed late. Really late. Waited in my car across the street until midnight. The building emptied. Security left. Lights dimmed. But one stayed on. Don's floor. One glowing rectangle in a sea of black glass. I snuck in through the back entrance with my keycard. Rode the elevator in silence. The office was dead quiet. Except for the sound of fingers on a keyboard. I rounded the corner. Don was sitting in the dark, screen on. Still typing. I said his name. He didn't stop. Didn't even flinch. I stepped closer. His screen was still blank. Just the cursor blinking. I leaned in and said, "Don." He turned. No expression. No recognition. Just blinked once. Then he said, "You should go." I left. The next morning, I came in early. Don's cubicle was empty. No monitor. No desk. Just a stretch of wall where a desk had been, clean, bare, no mark it had ever been there. I asked around. No one remembered Don. No one remembered me being moved either. There was never a cubicle there to begin with, they said. But sometimes, when I stay late and the floor goes quiet, I still hear typing. From that exact spot. Even though there's nothing there. Chapter 6, The Craigslist House Cleaning Job That Wasn't Right. It started with a Craigslist ad. $200 cash, 3 hours of house cleaning. Must be discreet, reliable, no questions. Transportation can be provided. Text only. I'd just gotten laid off. Rent was due. My car needed brakes, and I hadn't eaten a proper meal in 3 days. So yeah, I texted. Guy replied instantly. Said his name was Dean. Told me he'd pick me up outside the 7-Eleven on 48th at 10 a.m. tomorrow. Cash on completion. No details. I asked what kind of cleaning. He said, nothing gross. Just dusty. It's been vacant. He showed up in a gray pickup. No plates. Early 2000s Dodge. Tinted windows. Clean enough to not raise alarm. He was in his 50s. Balding. Wore a zip-up hoodie and jeans that still had the tags on them. Didn't smile much. I asked where we were going. He said, it's about 40 minutes north. No cell service, but we won't be long. The drive got weirder the longer we went. Highway turned into back roads. Then gravel roads. Then no road at all, just a narrow path carved through brush and forest. Eventually, we pulled up to a clearing. 1-story house. No neighbors. No mailbox. Windows boarded up, paint peeling, porch half collapsed. Looked like no one had touched it in years. Dean killed the engine and said, "Don't open anything you didn't see me open." Then handed me gloves and a roll of trash bags. Inside was worse than outside. It wasn't filthy. It was abandoned in a hurry. Plate still in the sink, covered in mold. Calendar on the wall stopped at 2014. Shoes by the door. A half-full cup of coffee turned green in the living room. Dean told me to focus on the upstairs. Said he'd handle the basement. Shouldn't take more than a few hours, he said. Just wipe down, bag up the trash, don't touch the furniture. I headed up. 3 bedrooms. One looked like it belonged to a kid, stickers on the dresser, crayon marks on the wall. Another was a guest room. The third clearly a master bedroom. That's where it got strange. Because the entire room was covered in plastic sheeting. Floor, walls, ceiling. There was a small TV on the dresser, old tube kind, but it was still plugged in. Still warm. Beside the bed was a camcorder on a tripod. No tape. Battery long dead. But it faced the corner, not the bed. And taped to the wall. A piece of paper that read, "They don't like when you touch their things." I went back downstairs. Dean wasn't there. The basement door was open. I called out. No answer. I waited. 15 minutes. 20. Still nothing. So I went down. It was pitch black. Smelled like bleach and wet concrete. My phone was dead, no service anyway, so I used the flashlight from the kitchen. Found a fuse box. Old washing machine. Shelves of canned goods. And then a table. Long wooden. Fresh scratches in the surface. Like something had been dragged across it repeatedly. Or someone. Then I saw the tarp in the corner. Something beneath it. Long human-sized. I turned and sprinted up the stairs. Dean was waiting in the living room. Calm. Smiling now. He asked, "You see the freezer down there?" I said no. He nodded, like that was the right answer. Then handed me an envelope. Said I could keep the gloves. Drove me back to the 7-Eleven. Didn't say another word. I never saw him again. The envelope had $200 in cash. Crisp bills. I tried reporting it, called the non-emergency line. They said no missing persons matched the name or truck description. No property records for a house in that location. When I tried to take someone out there, the road wasn't there anymore. Just trees. No clearing. No tire tracks. But sometimes, when I check Craigslist, I see a post just like it. Same wording. Same phone number. I tried texting it again. Just once. It replied. "You already helped. Thank you." Chapter 7, The Delivery Driver Who Kept Coming Back. It started small. I get a lot of packages. Online orders, stuff from work, groceries. I'm not proud of how often I hit, by now, but I live alone and work from home, so it's just easier. That's why I didn't think twice about the same guy delivering multiple times in a week. Early 30s, beard, always wore the company vest, even when it was 90 degrees out. Friendly enough. Quiet. The first few times, he just handed me the boxes and left. But by the third or fourth time, he started making small talk. "Hey, saw your lights were still on at 2 a.m. You okay? You always wear that hoodie when you answer the door. You go through a lot of cereal, huh?" I laughed it off. Didn't think anything of it. Then he started asking questions. "You live alone, right? Don't you have a dog or something for protection? You ever think about switching to blinds instead of curtains?" It crossed the line from small talk to weird real fast. I stopped answering the door directly and let him leave packages outside. Even watched from the peephole to make sure he walked away. But sometimes, he didn't. Sometimes, he just stood there. Looking at the door. Like he was listening. I reported it to the delivery company. They apologized, said they'd handle it. Said he'd be reassigned. But the next day, he came back. No uniform. No package. Just knocked on the door and said, "You forgot to sign for something yesterday." I didn't open the door. He knocked again. Harder this time. Then whispered, "I know you're home." I called the cops. They came. He was gone. I showed them security footage from my doorbell cam. The officer leaned in, squinting. Then said, "That guy doesn't work for the company anymore." I asked what he meant. He was let go last month. We actually had a complaint about him following someone else home. That's when I started checking old footage. Doorbell history. Home camera logs. He delivered packages 3 times before I even noticed him. Sometimes at night, leaving stuff without ringing the bell. Sometimes without a package at all. Just standing there. Watching the house. The cops did a sweep of the neighborhood. Warned me to lock up. File a restraining order if he came back. He didn't show for a while. I started to relax. Until one night, I found a package on my doorstep with no label. Just my name. Handwritten. Inside, an envelope. Inside that, a printed photo. Of me. Sleeping. It was taken from inside the house. Chapter 8. There's a man who walks through the parking garage at the same time every night. It started when I changed my hours. I'd been working late to avoid rush hour, staying until 9:30 or 10 some nights, just enough to get a quiet drive home. My office has a private parking garage beneath the building, 4 levels, barely lit, concrete walls that echo everything. On the 3rd night of staying late, I noticed him. A man in a dark jacket, walking through the garage as I was getting into my car. Didn't think anything of it at first. Probably another employee working late. But he didn't park. Didn't head toward the elevator or stairs. Just walked, slow, steady, from one end of the garage to the other. Didn't look at me. Didn't say anything. Just passed behind my car and disappeared behind a pillar. Next night, same thing. That's when I checked the time. It was exactly 9:47 p.m. when he appeared. I remember because I had just put the key in the ignition and the dash clock lit up. I thought it was weird, but not scary, just one of those coincidence moments you notice and forget. Until the next night. 9:47 on the dot. He appeared again. Same spot. Same pace. That's when I started watching. By the end of the week, I'd confirmed it, every single night, at exactly 9:47, the man would appear. Walk across the garage in the same direction. Same coat. Same expressionless face. He never entered the building. Never left it either. Just walked through. At first, I figured he lived nearby, maybe using it as a shortcut. But the garage has one entrance. And it's badge access only. Locked from both ends after 7 o'clock. So how the hell was he getting in? I asked building security. They checked the logs. Said no one had badged in after hours. No one matching his description even worked in the building. They offered to do a walkthrough. I waited in my car that night with the engine running, lights off. 9:47 came. He walked past again. Security arrived at 9:49. By then, the man was gone. They said maybe I was imagining it. So I recorded it. Parked early, aimed my dash cam toward the walking route. Captured the footage. At exactly 9:47, the man walks into frame. Same jacket. Same gait. But when I went to show it to security, the video had corrupted. All 5 nights, each clip was fine until the moment he appeared. Then it glitched. Audio buzzed. Video scrambled. And then it resumed, with no one in sight. I kept coming back. Same time. Same place. Then one night, I stood outside my car. I waited for him. He walked closer than usual. Within 10 feet. I said, "Do you work here?" He didn't stop walking. Didn't look at me. But as he passed, he whispered, "You're off schedule." Then kept walking. That was the last night I saw him. Until a week later, when someone from HR found my business card left on a stairwell. No wallet. No phone. I had no memory of dropping it. But the weirdest part. The timestamp on the security cam footage showed I was on that stairwell at 9:47 p.m. Except I hadn't been in the building that night. Or at least, I don't think I had. I quit 2 weeks later. Moved to a new job. New city. New parking routine. But every time I check my watch now, and it hits 9:47, I look over my shoulder. And I always feel like someone's just finished walking past me.